The individual's inner solar system, bringing about contact with the sun within. Here, the primary task is the mapping out of a person's sub-personalities and their subconscious wills. The individual naturally possesses many dimensions, facets, and qualities to their character. In many individuals, these various parts are in chaotic competition. One part of themselves wants one thing, while another part of themselves wants something altogether different. Sometimes these parts are in open conflict with each other. In NLP, they call this incongruence. All the various aspects and functions that make up one's personality can be categorized by their differing needs and drives. At a deep and unconscious level, we possess a swirling array of complexes and sub-personalities whose manifold combinations make up our inner cosmos. Many of these sub-personalities operate below the level of conscious awareness, and they seek to achieve their aims independent of our conscious knowledge. Sometimes they even work against our wishes and our conscious will. In the early stages of organizing our inner cosmos, all these various parts of ourselves represent a swirling mass of sometimes conflicting urges, drives, desires, and emotions, seeking to be expressed and assert their interest. Lost in a cosmic sea of colliding debris, many people find, upon examination, that their inner cosmos resembles something more like the universe immediately after the Big Bang, a monstrous assemblage of disorganized parts, taking shape only to collide with one another and be broken to bits again. When organizing their inner cosmos, the individual faces a real and practical problem. How is it possible to coordinate these various parts of ourselves, to give to them each some semblance of adequate expression, and how do we construct an inner cosmos of unity, order, and harmony from these various elements? Disorder is a terrible thing to have to live with. All the worse when it's inside of us. Just like the cosmos itself, our inner cosmos requires a central point, a sun, around which all those other parts can orbit for the purpose of establishing an inner order and harmony. The sun within represents the individual's guiding force of consciousness. It is the part of oneself that acts as an internal locus of authority, control, and security. The sun within is deeply connected to the individual's true will. We might even say that it is the current of light that streams from this sun within, which is the source of life for the will. For consciousness to become productive in creating itself in willed forms, one of its parts, the strongest part, must step forward amidst the swirling disorder and claim the center. It is this part that establishes order. All those other parts become servants whose lives revolve around the service of consciousness and its primary objective, its true will. This part which becomes the center of a circle whose circumference includes the whole of consciousness. Establishing a sacred center, this axis mundi, is our core objective when we talk about centralizing our psyche. The organization of the psyche around a central understanding of itself is essential to establishing one's own sacred order in their inner cosmos. All those various parts, aspects, and facets of the individual's being must be assessed to determine which one is the true sovereign, the bearer of the individual's true will. Of what remains, the question becomes, what role can those other parts serve? Like individual personalities in the king's court, each must address a specific function. Those that already possess some kind of organization that represent particularly useful tendencies or skills can become planets in the individual's inner cosmos. Those of lesser value or importance, who nonetheless may still possess positive qualities or enough existing organization to occasionally be useful, become moons. Those who only possess fragmentary qualities, who are sharp and pointed, who are broken or dangerous elements, get swung by gravity far out into the furthest reaches of the inner cosmos, or neatly arranged in the asteroid belt of one's own consciousness, pushed far enough away from one's inner organization where they can circulate in ordered fashion without doing any harm. Organizing one's inner cosmos on paper begins by first giving names to those various parts. Here we want to give interesting and appropriate names and titles to the various aspects of our personality, and there may be many. Here we want to list different traits, drives, urges, desires, tendencies, skill sets, complexes, personas, predictable moods, erratic wishes, occasional fantasies, unusual aspects, reliable qualities, and all those little-known facets of ourselves that we rarely or ever allow others to see. When I first performed this ritual of organization, I had a poster board-sized piece of paper that had adhesive like a Post-it note that I stuck to the wall of my office. I spent a whole day analyzing and recording all the little micro or sub-personalities that I could identify operating within myself. I also, in a much more bold lettering, recorded all the more obvious parts of myself until I had perhaps 100 or more names and titles given to those various parts and aspects that I could recognize operating within my personality. I actually was really surprised. The deeper I dug, the more I found. Starting, of course, with the obvious and gradually working toward the less obvious, all the way down to the very subtle, until I found myself having to admit the existence of parts of myself that otherwise I might never have become aware of. After this list is created, the next step is to group those parts that have similarities or affiliations or represent conglomerations that possess obvious associations to each other. This might resemble playing a game of which of these things are like the other. For example, if a person, say, wrote the words bat, glove, and home run, these things could be collectively called baseball. As these parts are grouped, some of them will reflect conglomerations of positive and useful values. These then become the planets of our inner cosmos. If there appear to be parts grouped that reflect particularly negative or unresourceful elements, then they can either be labeled as dark planets or, even better, reframed by looking at the positive intention behind those supposed negative qualities in order to rebrand those parts as serving a positive role. For example, if a group of parts contains a theme of, say, hostility, aggression, or destructive tendencies, then maybe consider that those parts may just be misunderstood. They could be given the job of protector of the inner cosmos, and their qualities reframed in such a way that they can still serve a useful function. For some elements, no real use will be found. These may be parts that are not formed enough to be actually able to become something. Some of these parts may represent erratic tendencies or completely unrealistic, crazy fantasies, or just parts which don't fit in any way into the scheme of what we are presently doing. For example, a person may have determined that it's absolutely their true will to become a minister, but some little fragmented part of them also wants to rob a bank. Maybe because they watched a cowboy movie when they were a kid that had an exciting scene where bank robbers were jumping from train car to train car during their getaway, and to their 8-year-old self, that looked like a lot of fun. Sometimes those parts just dissolve upon examination. If not, then that fragmentary part that kind of wants to engage in Old West style crime is better pushed out into the asteroid belt of consciousness before it collides with another more important and realistic part of the cosmos they are creating for themselves. When this inner organization has been accomplished, simply draw your inner cosmos on a piece of paper. Label the sun as that part one has identified as their true will. The name of this sun will be the same as the individual's identity mantra. Then group the most important or primary planets with their titles in the inner orbit around this central sun. The less important secondary planets can get set out a bit further, while all those little fragmentary pieces which don't fit into one's present plans are drawn as misshapen shards in the asteroid belt. This is the inner cosmos, the individual's own organization of their subjective world. It is amazing how much clarity this practice brings. After this illustration has been created, put it somewhere where you'll see it every day, at least for a while, because your unconscious mind will begin to organize itself according to this symbolic representation you have created. This is your act of bringing order to your world. As a tribute to God, you too are creating order from chaos. As a protege of God, you too are creating a cosmos.